The needle slid into my vein, and I watched my blood, dark red, the rarest kind, flow through clear tubing into a collection bag that would save someone's life. My hands were shaking, but not from the donation. I was used to needles. After 3 years of surgeries, physical therapy, nerve blocks, and experimental treatments that never quite worked, needles were just another Tuesday. No, I was shaking because the nurse had said $5,000. $5,000 for one donation, paid in cash, no questions asked. That was 3 months of rent. That was the physical therapy sessions I'd been skipping because my insurance had maxed out. That was the difference between homelessness and having a roof over my head for just a little bit longer. "You're AB negative, Mr. Castellan," the nurse said, her voice gentle as she monitored the collection bag. "Do you know how rare that is? Less than 1% of the population. You're literally saving a life tonight." I wanted to laugh. Me, saving a life, when I couldn't even save my own from falling apart piece by piece. When I'd woken up this morning, my legs had refused to cooperate at all, forcing me to use the wheelchair I kept folded in my closet for the worst days. When the hospital had called at 2 in the morning, desperate and offering money I couldn't refuse, I'd had to inject myself with enough pain medication to function, strap on my forearm crutches, and take 3 buses to get here because I couldn't afford the Uber. But I didn't say any of that. I just nodded and watched my blood drain away, and tried not to think about whose veins it would end up in. Tried not to wonder if they were someone important, someone loved, someone whose life actually mattered to people beyond a dollar amount in a manila envelope. The nurse finished, pressed cotton to my arm, and handed me that envelope. It was thick, real. I clutched it like a lifeline. "Thank you," she said, and she sounded like she meant it. "You have no idea what you've just done." She was right. I had no idea. I had no idea that the blood now leaving my body was flowing into Kieran Frost, twin brother to the most dangerous alpha in the Pacific Northwest. I had no idea that Kieran had been in a coma for 6 days, dying slowly because his rare blood type meant compatible donors were nearly impossible to find. I had no idea that my blood would be the thing that pulled him back from the edge of death, that it would create a connection neither of us understood, that it would change everything. All I knew was that I had $5,000 and maybe, just maybe, I could survive another month. I was wrong about that too. My name is River Castellan, and this is the story of how one desperate act of charity dragged me into the world of the Frost twins, 2 alphas who decided I was theirs to keep. This is the story of how being broken saved my life and nearly destroyed it. This is the story of how sometimes the things that should kill us are the only things that make us feel alive. Let me take you back to the beginning. Let me show you how I became the thing 2 of the most powerful men in Seattle refused to let go of. And maybe, by the end, you'll understand why I stopped wanting them to. 3 years ago, I was a different person. I was 23, newly engaged to an alpha named Derek who promised me forever, and I was 6 months away from finishing my degree in library science. I had dreams. I was going to work in the university library, surround myself with books and quiet spaces, maybe start a family once Derek finished his residency. It was a small life, but it was mine, and I was happy. Then a drunk driver ran a red light at 60 miles per hour and turned my small life into something unrecognizable. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed with my mother crying beside me and a doctor who looked too young to be delivering life-altering news. The accident had crushed my spine at the L1 vertebra. They'd operated, inserted rods and screws, saved what they could. But the damage was done. Partial paralysis from the waist down. Chronic pain that would never fully go away. Mobility aids for the rest of my life. "You're lucky to be alive," the doctor said. And I remember thinking that lucky was a strange word for waking up in a body that no longer worked the way it was supposed to. Derek visited once. He stood at the foot of my hospital bed, and I watched his face cycle through pity, discomfort, and something that looked like disgust he was trying to hide. "I can't do this," he'd said, and his voice cracked like he was the one suffering. "I'm sorry, River. I thought I could, but I can't watch you like this. I can't." He'd stopped, swallowed. "You're not the person I fell in love with anymore." He'd left the engagement ring on my bedside table and walked out. I never saw him again. My family lasted longer. 6 months of mounting medical bills, of insurance companies denying claims, of my mother's increasingly strained voice asking how much more physical therapy I really needed. My father stopped visiting after the 3rd month. My younger sister looked at me like I was something broken that needed to be put away. "We can't keep doing this," my mother had said finally, standing in my cramped apartment that I could barely navigate with my wheelchair. "You're 23. You need to learn to take care of yourself. We've done everything we can." They'd done the bare minimum, and we both knew it. But I nodded because I was tired of being a burden. Tired of seeing my existence drain their bank account and their patience in equal measure. So I'd learned to live small. Found the cheapest studio apartment I could, 4th floor walk-up, no elevator, which meant on wheelchair days I was trapped inside. Got a remote data entry job that paid barely enough. Sold everything I owned that had any value. Watched my savings evaporate with every medical bill, every prescription, every physical therapy session I couldn't skip without losing what little mobility I had left. And I'd learned to be invisible, because the world didn't want to see broken omegas who couldn't be fixed. The world wanted omegas who were soft and perfect and could give their alphas children and comfort, and all the things my body could no longer reliably provide. Heat cycles were agony now instead of natural. Bonding was medically risky. Even sex was complicated by pain and mobility issues. I was 26 years old, and I'd already accepted that the life I dreamed of was never going to happen. That I would grow old alone in my studio apartment, working a job I hated, surviving but not really living. Then the hospital called, and everything changed. The 2 buses and a train ride home took forever, and by the time I made it back to my apartment building, my legs were screaming. Not the phantom pain the doctors said I'd eventually stop feeling. This was real, nerve fire racing up my spine, muscles spasming in ways I couldn't control. I'd pushed too hard today, taken too many risks. But I had $5,000 in my pocket, and that felt like winning even if my body was paying the price. I made it up 3 flights of stairs by sitting down and pulling myself up each step with my arms, my crutches strapped to my back. It was humiliating and exhausting, but it was the only way. On the 4th floor landing, I had to stop, gasping for breath, vision swimming. That's when I saw them. 2 men in expensive suits standing outside my apartment door. They weren't knocking. They were just waiting, like they had all the time in the world and knew I'd show up eventually. The first was tall, maybe 6'1", with dark hair and a face that was handsome in a forgettable way. Professional. Efficient. The kind of person who did unpleasant things for people who didn't want to get their hands dirty. The second was massive, 6'4" easily, broad-shouldered, with platinum blonde hair that caught the hallway's fluorescent lighting and turned it silver. He had the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers, except it was currently set in an expression of absolute neutrality. But his eyes, Arctic blue, cold as winter, tracked my awkward ascent up the final stairs with an intensity that made my skin prickle. I knew who he was. Everyone in Seattle knew who he was. Cassian Frost, the Ice King, the alpha who'd taken his family's modest shipping business and turned it into an empire that controlled half the Pacific Northwest's commerce. The alpha who'd wiped out 3 rival packs in 2 years after his parents died, consolidating power with surgical precision and zero mercy. The alpha whose name people whispered with a mixture of respect and fear. And he was standing outside my shitty apartment in a suit that probably cost more than my entire year's rent, watching me struggle up the last 3 steps with something in his eyes I couldn't read. I wanted to run, but running required legs that worked. So instead, I pulled myself up to standing, grabbed my crutches, and tried to look like I hadn't just crawled up 4 flights of stairs. River Castellan? The dark-haired man asked, though it wasn't really a question. That's me. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Can I help you? Mr. Frost would like a word. May we come inside? It wasn't a request. We all knew it. I unlocked my apartment and led them into the tiny space that was my entire world. Studio apartment. Kitchen in one corner, bed in another, bathroom the size of a closet. My wheelchair folded against the wall. My physical therapy equipment taking up half the floor space. Everything I owned visible in one glance. I watched Cassian Frost take it all in. Watched his expression not change even slightly. I couldn't tell if he was judging me or simply cataloging information. Please sit, I said, gesturing to the 2 folding chairs I owned. I lowered myself onto my bed because standing was no longer an option. My legs were done for the day. Cassian didn't sit. He stood in the center of my tiny apartment, somehow making it feel even smaller just by existing in it. You donated blood tonight, he said. Not a question. A statement. My stomach dropped. That's confidential medical information. How do you? The blood went to my brother. Cassian's voice was controlled, but there was something underneath it. Something raw. Kieran Frost. He's been in a coma for 6 days following an ambush on our convoy. AB-negative blood. Almost impossible to find compatible donors fast enough. He was dying. Was. Past tense. He woke up an hour ago. Cassian continued, and his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The doctors say your blood is what brought him back. That without it, we would have lost him tonight. I didn't know what to say to that. I'm glad I could help. That's all you have to say? For the first time, emotion cracked through Cassian's frozen exterior. You saved my brother's life, and you're glad you could help? What else do you want me to say? I donated blood. That's what blood donations do. They save lives. I'm sure whoever received it would have. Kieran is asking for you. I blinked. What? He woke up, and the first thing he said was your name. River. He said he dreamed about you, that he heard your heartbeat, that he felt you saving him. Cassian's eyes bore into mine. The doctors have no explanation for how he knew your name. The donation was anonymous. But he's convinced you're connected to him somehow, and he won't rest until he sees you. This was insane. That's not possible. I've never met your brother. I don't know him. And yet he knows you. Cassian pulled out his phone, pulled up something, turned the screen toward me. It was a video. In it, a man who looked exactly like Cassian. The same platinum blonde hair, the same striking features, but softer somehow, warmer, was in a hospital bed, agitated, trying to pull out his forearm. Where is he? The man in the video was saying. Where's River? I need to see him. I need to thank him. Please, don't let him leave. A doctor's voice, calm and professional. Kieran, you need to rest. Not until I see him. Not until I know he's safe. Please. Kieran's voice cracked. He saved me. I have to. The video cut off. I stared at the blank screen. I don't understand. Neither do I. Cassian pocketed his phone. But my brother is convinced you're important to him. Essential, even. And after 6 days of not knowing if he'd wake up, I'm not inclined to deny him anything. He paused. I'd like you to come to the hospital. Meet him. Let him thank you. After that, if you choose to walk away, I'll compensate you for your time and ensure you're never bothered again. And if I say no? Cassian's expression didn't change. Then I'll ask again tomorrow. And the day after. And every day until you agree. Because my brother is the only family I have left, and I will do whatever it takes to help him heal. Even if that means being an inconvenience to a stranger who wants to be left alone. He saw me. Saw through my tiny apartment and my broken body and my desperate need for invisibility straight to the core of who I'd become. Someone who just wanted to be left alone because being noticed meant being hurt. I'll pay you, Cassian added. For your time. Whatever you think is fair. I looked at the envelope of cash on my bed. $5,000. 3 months of survival. And this man was offering more, just for me to meet his brother, let him say thank you, and leave. 10,000, I heard myself say. For 1 visit. 1 hour. Then you leave me alone. Cassian's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but something. Done. That should have been my first clue that I was making a terrible mistake. That someone willing to pay $10,000 for an hour of my time wasn't going to just let me walk away after. But I needed the money. And maybe, somewhere deep down, I was curious about the man who dreamed my name. The hospital they took me to wasn't Seattle General, where I donated. This was Swedish Medical Center's private wing. The section where people with unlimited money went to suffer in luxury. All marble floors and original artwork and the kind of hushed silence that money could buy. I felt obscenely out of place in my worn jeans and the hoodie with a hole in the elbow. My crutches squeaked on the polished floor. Every step was agony, but I'd learned to hide it. Pain was just white noise after 3 years. You learned to live with it, or you didn't live at all. Cassian led me through security that was more intense than airport screening, down a hallway that seemed to go on forever, to a room at the very end. He paused outside the door. Before you go in, you should understand something, he said quietly. Kieran is different than he was before the accident. The doctors say it's trauma, that he'll level out as he heals. But right now, he's focused on you in a way that's concerning. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or unsafe, you leave. Immediately. Do you understand? I nodded, even though I didn't understand anything about this situation. Cassian opened the door. The room was huge, more like a hotel suite than a hospital room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Seattle skyline, lights twinkling in the darkness. And in the massive bed, surrounded by monitors and 4 lines, was the man from the video. Kieran Frost. He looked like Cassian, same height, same striking features, same platinum blonde hair. But where Cassian was winter personified, all ice and sharp edges, Kieran was warmer. Softer. His eyes, the same Arctic blue, lit up the moment he saw me. You came, he breathed, and his voice cracked with emotion. You actually came. I didn't know what to say. Your brother said you wanted to see me. Wanted? Kieran laughed, sharp and a little unhinged. I've been losing my mind since I woke up. Everyone kept saying you'd left, that you were anonymous, that I'd never find you. But Cassian found you. Of course he did. He held out his hand, trembling. Please, come here. Let me see you properly. I glanced at Cassian, who nodded almost imperceptibly. I made my way across the room, crutches clicking against expensive flooring, hyper-aware of how broken I looked in this pristine space. Kieran's eyes tracked every movement. When I reached the bedside, he reached out and caught my wrist. His grip was gentle but firm. "You're in pain," he said immediately, and his brow furrowed. I can feel it. Like static under your skin. Your spine, right? Lower back. I froze. How did you? I don't know. Kieran's thumb brushed over my pulse point, and I felt it. A spark of something. Connection. Recognition. Something that shouldn't be possible. But I know you. I heard your heartbeat while I was under. Felt you keeping me alive. He stopped, struggling for words. You're important. I don't understand it, but you are. I just donated blood. That's all. No. Kieran's grip tightened. It's more than that. Blood creates bonds, especially rare blood. The doctors said AB negative is so rare that sometimes transfusions create connections. Temporary usually, but strong. I think that's what happened to us. I looked at Cassian. Is that true? There are documented cases, Cassian said carefully. In wolf medicine. Blood bonds. Usually temporary, as Kieran said. A sense of connection between donor and recipient that fades over weeks or months. So this will go away, I said, trying to pull my wrist back gently. The connection you think you feel. It's just medical, not real. It feels real to me. Kieran still wouldn't let go. It feels like I finally found something I didn't know I was missing. And I can't, his voice cracked. I almost died, River. I was drowning in darkness for 6 days, and then I heard your heartbeat. And it was the only thing that kept me anchored. The only thing that made me want to fight my way back. So maybe it's just medical. Maybe it'll fade. But right now, in this moment, you're the realest thing in my world, and I'm asking, begging, please don't disappear on me. Not yet. I should have said no. Should have pulled away, taken Cassian's money, and gone back to my tiny apartment and my invisible life. This was too intense, too fast, too impossible. But I looked at Kieran Frost, powerful alpha, probably used to getting everything he wanted, and I saw desperation. Fear. The kind of raw vulnerability that only came from nearly losing everything. And I, who knew what it felt like to lose everything, found myself saying, okay, I'll stay. For a little while. Kieran exhaled like I'd just saved his life all over again. Cassian's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or concern. I couldn't tell. Thank you, Kieran said softly. Thank you for not running. But I would come to realize that staying, even just for a little while, was the decision that would trap me in a world I didn't understand, between two alphas who would refuse to let me go no matter how much I tried to leave. I stayed for an hour like I'd promised. Kieran asked me questions about my life, my favorite things, what I did for work. Normal questions that should have felt like small talk, but instead felt like he was memorizing me, cataloging every detail. I answered carefully, leaving out the worst parts. Yes, I lived alone. Yes, I worked remotely. No, I didn't have family nearby. I didn't mention that my family had abandoned me, or that I was 3 weeks from being evicted, or that I'd spent the morning calculating whether I could afford both rent and physical therapy, or if I'd have to choose. Cassian stood in the corner the entire time, watching. Not his brother, me. I felt his gaze like a physical weight, assessing, calculating. I couldn't tell what he was thinking, but it made me nervous. When the hour was up, I stood. I should go? You need to rest. Stay longer, Kieran said immediately, his hand catching mine. Please, just a little more. Kieran, Cassian's voice cut in firm. We agreed. 1 hour. River has fulfilled his obligation. Kieran's jaw set in a way that was pure stubborn alpha. What if I asked him to stay of his own free will? Not obligation. Choice. Then it would still be his choice to say no. Cassian moved forward, gently untangling his brother's grip from my wrist. Let him go, Kieran. If he wants to come back, he will. But you can't force it. Something in Kieran's expression crumbled. You're right. I'm sorry, River. I'm being a nightmare, aren't I? I almost died, and now I'm trying to make a stranger responsible for my emotional stability. He laughed bitterly. Cassian, I'm becoming our father. No, Cassian said sharply. You're nothing like him. You're healing. That's all. There was a story there, in the way both twins tensed, but I didn't have the right to ask. I'll go, I said quietly. But I hesitated. I could come back. Tomorrow, maybe. If you wanted. I don't know why I offered. Maybe because Kieran looked so lost. Maybe because I understood what it felt like to be drowning and desperate for an anchor. Maybe because $10,000 for an hour felt like too much, and some part of me wanted to earn it properly. Kieran's face lit up. Really? If your brother agrees. And if it's during the day? I don't. I stopped, embarrassed. I don't move well at night. Especially not in unfamiliar places. Cassian's eyes dropped to my crutches, then back to my face. Your mobility. Is it permanent? I'd gotten good at this conversation. Car accident 3 years ago. Spinal damage. Partial paralysis. Crutches on good days, wheelchair on bad ones. Very permanent. And pain management. Also permanent. I lifted my chin. If that's a problem. It's not. Cassian pulled out his phone, typed something. I'll send a car for you tomorrow. 10 a.m. It'll take you directly to the hospital and back home after. Door to door. I can take the bus. No. Both twins said simultaneously. You took buses to get here tonight, Cassian continued. How many? I didn't answer. 3, he said, which meant he'd had someone track my movements. With your condition. In pain. Because you needed $5,000 enough to push your body past its limits. His voice was perfectly controlled, but there was anger underneath. You won't do that again. Not for us. We're the ones asking for your time. We provide appropriate transportation. It was logical, efficient, but it also felt like the first thread of a trap closing around me. Fine, I agreed. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. 1 hour. 2 hours, Kieran bargained. And I'll try not to be weird and intense about you being here. You're always weird and intense, Cassian said, but his voice was fond. It's your defining trait. Their easy banter made something ache in my chest. I missed that. Having someone who knew you well enough to tease you. Who loved you despite, or because of, your flaws. I used to have that with Derek. Before the accident made me something he couldn't love anymore. 2 hours, I agreed. But I'm serious about the door-to-door service dropping me home. I don't. I took a breath. I don't like people knowing where I live. Cassian's expression sharpened. Are you in danger? No. I just value my privacy. It wasn't quite a lie. I wasn't in active danger. But I also lived in a building where the locks barely worked and the landlord didn't fix things, and sometimes men followed Omega's home, and no one did anything about it. The world wasn't safe for Omegas like me. Broken ones without packs, without protection, without anyone who'd notice if we disappeared. Understood, Cassian said, though I had the feeling he didn't believe me. The driver will be discreet. He walked me out, leaving Kieran with a promise to return shortly. In the hallway, Cassian stopped me. Here. He handed me an envelope. It was heavy. I haven't earned it yet. I said 2 hours tomorrow. You earned it tonight. His voice was firm. Kieran hasn't been that calm since he woke up. Having you here helped him more than you know. He paused. There's something you should understand about my brother. He's not normally like this. Obsessive, intense. Before the ambush, he was gentle, easygoing. The kind of person who made everyone around him feel safe. But nearly dying changed him. Or maybe it just revealed what was already there. Either way, if at any point his attention makes you uncomfortable, you tell me. Immediately. I won't let him hurt you, even unintentionally. You really love him, I said. He's the only family I have left. The only person in this world I trust completely. Cassian's ice blue eyes met mine. Which is why I'm going to ask you something, and I want the truth. I nodded. Why did you agree to come back tomorrow? You have the money. You could disappear. Why stay? I thought about lying. But something about Cassian made me think he'd see through it. Because I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning, I said quietly. And if I can help him feel less alone, even for an hour, that's worth something. Cassian studied me for a long moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, almost approachable. You're kind, he said. That's going to complicate things. What things? But he just shook his head and walked me to the elevator, where a driver was already waiting to take me home. I got back to my apartment at midnight, exhausted and confused, and holding an envelope with $10,000 in it. $10,000. For 1 hour of sitting and talking. It felt wrong. Like I'd stumbled into something I didn't understand, and by the time I figured it out, it would be too late to leave. I should have listened to that instinct. Instead, I went to bed, and for the first time in 3 years, I slept through the night without waking up from pain or nightmares. I dreamed about Arctic blue eyes and the steady beep of heart monitors and a voice saying, I found you. I found you. Please don't leave. The next morning, a black sedan arrived at exactly 10 a.m. The driver was professional and quiet, and when I struggled getting down the stairs with my crutches, he simply waited at the bottom without offering to help unless I asked. I appreciated that. Being allowed to struggle with dignity. The hospital felt different in daylight. Less intimidating. More like what it was, a place where people healed. Kieran was sitting up in bed when I arrived, looking significantly better than the night before. Color in his cheeks, brightness in his eyes. He smiled the moment he saw me, and it was so genuinely happy that I felt guilty for how much I'd dreaded coming back. "You came," he said, like he'd doubted it. I said I would. People say a lot of things. He gestured to the chair beside his bed. "Thank you for coming back. I know this is weird. Extremely weird," I agreed, settling into the chair with relief. My legs had woken up angry today, but I understand weird. My whole life has been weird since the accident, so this barely registers. "Tell me about it," Kieran asked. "The accident? Only if you want to. But I'd like to know you. Really know you. Not just," he gestured vaguely. "Not just this bond one feel." So I told him. Not everything, but enough. The drunk driver. The surgeries. Derek leaving. My family's slow abandonment. Learning to live in a body that betrayed me more days than it cooperated. Kieran listened with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. He asked questions that showed he was really hearing me, not just waiting for his turn to talk. "I'm sorry," he said when I finished. "That people failed you like that. You deserved better. It is what it is. I'd learned not to dwell." "What about you?" Cassian said there was an ambush. Kieran's expression darkened. "Someone's been targeting our pack. Small hits at first, supply chain disruptions, financial attacks. We thought we had it handled. Then they went for blood." He touched his chest, where I knew bandages covered whatever injuries he'd sustained. "Convoy ambush. Professional. They knew exactly where we'd be. Knew how many guards we'd have. It was designed to kill, and it almost worked." "Do you know who?" "We have suspicions. Cassian's handling it." His smile was sharp. "And when my brother handles things, they stay handled. Permanently." There was a darkness there, a reminder that these weren't just wealthy alphas playing at power. These were men who'd built an empire by being willing to do what others wouldn't. "Does that scare you?" Kieran asked, watching my face. "Knowing what we're capable of. Should it?" Most people would say yes. Most people haven't had to survive the way I have. Violence doesn't scare me. What scares me is being helpless. I met his eyes. "So as long as you're not planning to hurt me, I think we're fine." "Never," Kieran said fiercely. "I would never hurt you. You saved me, River. That creates a debt I can never repay. You don't owe me anything. I donated blood. That's it." "It's not, though." He leaned forward, earnest. "I felt you while I was under. Your heartbeat. Your presence. You were the reason I fought to wake up. That's not just blood donation. That's..." He stopped, frustrated. "I don't have words for what that is. But it matters. You matter." I didn't know what to say to that, so I changed the subject. "Cassian said you were different before. That the ambush changed you." "It did." Kieran leaned back against his pillows. "I spent 6 days in darkness, River. 6 days being aware but unable to move, to speak, to do anything but exist in this void. And every second, I knew I was slipping away. That if I let go, I'd be gone completely." It was, his voice cracked. "It was the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. And it made me realize how much time I'd wasted being gentle when I should have been fierce. Being accommodating when I should have been demanding. I almost lost everything because I wasn't strong enough to." He stopped, shook his head. "Sorry. That's a lot to dump on someone I barely know." "Trauma isn't polite," I said. "It doesn't wait until you know someone well enough to share. Sometimes you just need to say it out loud so it stops eating you from the inside." Kieran looked at me like I'd said something profound. "How are you so wise?" "I'm not. I'm just broken enough to recognize broken when I see it." "You're not broken." I gestured to my crutches leaning against the chair. "Evidence suggests otherwise." "No." Kieran's voice was firm. "Your body is injured. That's not the same as being broken. Broken suggests you can't function, can't survive, can't thrive. But you're here. You survived an accident that should have killed you. You survived people abandoning you. You survived 3 years of a system designed to grind you down. That's not broken, River. That's strong." My throat went tight. No one had said anything like that to me in 3 years. Everyone saw the crutches and the wheelchair and assumed broken was all I was. "Thank you," I managed, "for seeing it that way. It's the only way to see it." We talked for the full 2 hours. About books we'd read, places we wanted to go, stupid things that made us laugh. It was easy in a way conversation hadn't been easy in years. Kieran was funny and self-deprecating and occasionally intense in ways that should have been off-putting, but somehow weren't. When the time was up, I stood to leave, and Kieran caught my hand. "Tomorrow?" he asked. "Same time." I should have said no. This was already more complicated than I'd agreed to. But I found myself nodding. "Tomorrow." The pattern continued for a week. Every morning, the car arrived. Every morning, I spent 2 hours with Kieran. And every morning, Cassian appeared for at least part of the visit, ostensibly to check on his brother, but always watching me with those calculating eyes. On the 7th day, Cassian arrived while Kieran was napping and asked me to join him for coffee in the hospital's private cafeteria. "I want to make you a formal offer," Cassian said once we were seated. "Kieran is being discharged in 3 days. The doctors have cleared him to continue recovery at home with appropriate medical supervision. But his mental state is still fragile. He's developed a dependence on your presence. When you're not here, he's agitated, anxious, unable to rest properly. The doctors believe it's the blood bond working itself out, that eventually it'll fade. But until it does, you want me to keep visiting him," I finished. "More than that." Cassian leaned forward. "I want you to stay with us. At the Frost estate. As Kieran's companion during his recovery. You'd have your own suite, full medical support for your condition, and compensation that would make your financial concerns disappear. 3 months. That's how long the doctors estimate the blood bond will take to fade. After that, you're free to leave with enough money to start over anywhere you choose." I stared at him. "You want me to move into your house? Live with you? For 3 months?" "Yes." "That's insane." "It's practical." Cassian's voice was perfectly reasonable. "You're currently working a job you dislike, living in an apartment that's not accessible for your needs, and struggling financially. This solves all those problems while helping my brother heal. Everyone wins. Except I'd be giving up my independence. My life. Your life, as it currently exists, is slowly killing you," Cassian said bluntly. "I've seen the way you move. The pain you try to hide. You're surviving, River. Not living. This offer gives you 3 months to heal, to receive proper care, to not have to choose between rent and physical therapy. And when it's over, you'll have the resources to build whatever life you want. And if I say no?" Cassian's expression didn't change. "Then I'll respect your choice. The car will stop coming. You'll never hear from us again. But Kieran will struggle. He's grown attached to you in ways that concern his medical team. Removing you abruptly could set back his recovery significantly." It was manipulation. Elegant, perfectly executed manipulation designed to make me feel responsible for Kieran's well-being. And it worked. Because I looked at this alpha who'd orchestrated this entire conversation to get what he wanted, and I saw the fear underneath. The terror that his brother might not fully recover. The willingness to do anything, including coerce a stranger, to ensure Kieran healed. "I need to think about it," I said. "Take your time." "But River." Cassian caught my gaze. "Understand that this offer comes with protections. You'd be under our security. No one could touch you. No one could hurt you. You'd be safe in ways you haven't been in 3 years. That's worth something, isn't it?" He knew. Somehow, he knew that I didn't feel safe in my apartment, in my life, in my own skin most days. "I'll give you my answer tomorrow," I said. That night, I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of what I was considering. 3 months living with the Frost twins. 3 months of being paid to keep Kieran company while he healed. 3 months of safety and medical care and not having to worry about rent or food or whether my body would cooperate enough to get through the day. It was too good to be true, which meant there had to be a catch. But I was being evicted in 2 weeks. My savings were gone. I'd sold everything worth selling. And my body was getting worse. The pain, the mobility issues, the constant exhaustion of fighting just to exist. 3 months. I could survive 3 months of anything if it meant not being homeless. The next morning, I told Cassian yes. I watched his shoulders drop an inch, relief he tried to hide. "You've made the right choice," he said. But as he detailed the arrangements, movers for my belongings, complete medical evaluations, security protocols, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just agreed to something far more complicated than a 3-month job. I'd agreed to become theirs. And neither twin had any intention of letting me go when those 3 months ended. I just didn't know it yet. Moving into the Frost estate felt like stepping into a different world. The property was massive, 20 acres of gated land in the hills overlooking Seattle, with gardens and security that rivaled military installations. The main house was modern glass and steel, all clean lines and open spaces, with an entire medical wing that looked better equipped than most hospitals. My suite was on the 2nd floor, accessible by elevator because Cassian had specifically chosen it for that reason. It was bigger than my entire apartment. Bedroom, sitting room, bathroom with a walk-in shower and grab bars and a bench, and a private balcony. Everything was designed for accessibility in ways I'd never experienced. Doorways wide enough for my wheelchair. Counters at varying heights. Even the bed could adjust electronically. "We consulted with accessibility specialists," Cassian explained, watching me take it in. "If anything doesn't work for your needs, tell me. We'll fix it immediately." I couldn't find my voice. No one had ever done anything like this for me. Even when I'd lived with my family after the accident, they treated accessibility modifications as burdens, not necessities. Thank you. I finally managed. It's perfect. Kieran appeared in the doorway, looking better than I'd seen him since we met. Home clearly agreed with him. You're here, he said, smiling. Really here. I keep thinking I'll wake up, and this will have been a dream. Not a dream. I gestured around the suite. Though it feels like one. Kieran, this is too much. It's exactly enough. He moved into the room, and I saw he was still moving carefully, still healing. You saved my life. The least we can do is make sure yours is comfortable while you're helping me recover. There was something in the way he said it. While you're helping me recover. That suggested he didn't think 3 months would be enough either. But I pushed that aside. The contract was clear. 3 months. Then I was free to leave. The first week was an adjustment. I had my own schedule. Physical therapy 3 times a week with a specialist Cassian had hired specifically for me. Regular check-ins with a doctor who actually listened to my pain levels instead of dismissing them. And time to myself when I wasn't with Kieran. Which turned out to be less time than I'd expected. Kieran wanted me around constantly. Not in an oppressive way. He didn't demand my presence or get angry when I needed space. But he'd appear wherever I was, as if drawn by instinct. Reading in the library? Kieran would join me with his own book. Doing physical therapy? Kieran would watch, asking questions about my exercises and whether they helped. Eating dinner? Kieran would sit beside me, sometimes talking, sometimes just existing in comfortable silence. He's never done this before. Cassian told me one evening when I'd retreated to my suite for some alone time. He'd knocked, asked if he could come in, and I'd agreed because saying no to Cassian felt impossible. Done what? Attached to someone so completely. Even before the ambush, Kieran was independent. He had friends, relationships, but he never needed anyone the way he seems to need you. Cassian stood by the window, looking out over the estate grounds. It's the blood bond, but it's stronger than it should be. Than any documented case suggests it should be. Maybe because AB negative is so rare. Maybe the connection is proportional to rarity. Maybe. Cassian turned to look at me. Or maybe it's something else. Something we don't understand yet. There was something in his voice that made me nervous. Like what? I don't know. But I'm starting to think we should have consulted specialists before bringing you into our home. Before involving you in Kieran's recovery. He paused. If you want to leave, I'll honor that. I'll pay you for the full 3 months and arrange somewhere safe for you to go. You don't have to stay just because we made an agreement. It was an out. A clean escape from this increasingly strange situation. But I thought about Kieran's smile when he saw me. The way he'd started sleeping through the night because I was in the house. The progress he was making in physical therapy because I'd agreed to do mine at the same time, so we could encourage each other. I don't want to leave, I said. Not yet. But I need to understand what's happening. Why the bond is so strong. What it means long-term. I'll bring in specialists, Cassian agreed. The best in the field. We'll figure this out together. He left, and I sat in my beautiful suite that was starting to feel like a very comfortable cage, and wondered what I'd gotten myself into. The specialists arrived a week later, 3 of them, all experts in wolf biology and bonding. They ran tests on both Kieran and me. Blood work, scent analysis, even brain scans to map neural patterns. Their findings were presented in Cassian's office with all 3 of us present. This is unprecedented, Dr. Sarah Chun said, looking between her tablet and us with obvious fascination. The bond between you isn't just a temporary blood connection. It's exhibiting characteristics of a true mate bond. The room went silent. That's impossible, Cassian said flatly. Kieran's not bonded to him. They've never. I know. Dr. Chin pulled up scans on the large screen. But look at this. These are Kieran's brain scans from before the ambush. She switched images. And these are from yesterday. See this area? The amygdala and the hypothalamus? They're lit up in patterns we only see in bonded pairs. And River's scans show similar patterns. But we haven't made it, I said, my voice small. I don't understand how. Blood bonds, in rare cases, can trigger the same neural pathways as mate bonds. It's evolutionary. The body recognizing someone who literally kept you alive and rewiring to keep them close. Usually it's temporary. But in your case, River, you're an unmated omega. And Kieran is an unmated alpha who is dying. The bond seems to have imprinted. Like his hindbrain decided you were his mate because you saved him, and now it's reinforcing that belief every day you're together. Can it be broken? Cassian asked. Eventually. With distance and time. But separating them now, while the bond is this fresh and strong, would be traumatic for both of them, especially Kieran. His recovery is tied to River's presence in ways that go beyond psychology. I looked at Kieran. He'd gone pale. So I'm what? Permanently bonded to him? Without consent? Without choice? I heard my voice rising. That's not possible. Bonds require mutual intent, marking, mating. In traditional cases, yes, Dr. Chun said gently. But this is anything but traditional. The good news is that it's not permanent as a mating bond would be. With proper management, we can gradually reduce the intensity over months. Maybe a year. You need to see each other regularly at first, then taper off. Eventually, the bond will fade to something manageable, friendship, perhaps, or just a sense of connection that won't be overwhelming. A year, I repeated. Not 3 months. 3 months would be dangerous, another specialist interjected. Separating abruptly could cause severe psychological damage to Kieran and significant distress to River. We're talking panic attacks, depression, possible self-harm as the bond fights the separation. I felt like I couldn't breathe. This was supposed to be temporary. 3 months, then freedom. Not a year. Not this complicated bond that tied me to Kieran in ways I never agreed to. River. Kieran's voice was rough. I'm sorry. I didn't know. If I had any idea this would happen, I would never have. He stopped. You should go. Right now. Before this gets worse. Before I trap you into something you never wanted. I looked at him and saw genuine distress. This wasn't what he'd wanted either. If I leave now, I asked Dr. Chun, what happens to him? She hesitated. His recovery would stall. The trauma could resurface. He might survive it, but he wouldn't thrive. Not for a long time. And if I stay, the bond stabilizes, becomes manageable. And over time, with proper therapy and gradual distance, you both heal. It wasn't really a choice. Not when leaving meant damaging someone who'd already nearly died. I'll stay, I said, but I need new terms. This isn't what I signed up for, and I won't be held to a contract that didn't account for this situation. Cassian nodded. Name your terms. I want complete autonomy. If I need space, I get it without guilt or pressure. I want my own medical team who answers to me, not you. And I want updates every month on the bond status so I know when it's safe to leave without hurting either of us. Done, Cassian said immediately. And double the compensation. If I'm staying for a year instead of 3 months, I want to be paid fairly for my time. Triple, Cassian countered. You're giving up a year of your life to help my brother heal. That's worth more than money, but it's what I have to offer. I looked at Kieran. Do you agree to these terms? Because this only works if we're both choosing it. I agree, he said. And River? Thank you. For not hating me. For not running. For being, his voice cracked. For being kind even when you had every right not to be. The specialist left us with treatment plans and coping strategies and warnings about what to watch for. When they were gone, the 3 of us sat in Cassian's office in silence. I'm sorry, Cassian said finally. I should have researched this more thoroughly before bringing you here. I put you both at risk. You were trying to help your brother, I said. I understand that. Understanding doesn't make it right. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than ice in his eyes. Guilt. I'll make this as easy as possible for you. Whatever you need. I promise. And that's how I went from a 3-month arrangement to a year-long bond with an alpha I barely knew, under the watchful eyes of his twin who was starting to look at me with something that felt dangerous and complicated and nothing like the simple gratitude this was supposed to be. I was trapped in the most beautiful cage I'd ever seen. And somewhere deep down, I was starting to worry that I didn't want to leave anymore. That was the most terrifying realization of all. Months passed in a strange rhythm. My body healed in ways it hadn't in 3 years. The physical therapy was aggressive but effective, the pain management actually worked, and having consistent medical care meant I could address issues I'd been ignoring out of necessity. I went from using crutches daily to only needing them occasionally. The wheelchair became a backup instead of a constant companion. Kieran healed too. His physical injuries disappeared, but the psychological ones took longer. He had nightmares about the ambush, waking up screaming about darkness and blood, and losing everything. The only thing that calmed him was me, my voice, my presence, sometimes just my hand in his. I hate this, he told me one night after a particularly bad nightmare. We were in his room because he'd called for me, and I'd come because the bond wouldn't let me ignore his distress. I hate that you have to take care of me like I'm a child. You're not a child. You're traumatized. That's different. Is it though? Because I feel pathetic. I'm a powerful alpha who runs a territory, and I can't sleep through the night without an omega I've trapped into staying with me. You didn't trap me. I chose to stay. After doctors told you leaving would damage me. That's not really a choice. Neither was dying, but you almost did that. So I think we're even on making impossible choices for each other. He laughed despite himself. How do you do that? Make everything feel less terrible. Practice. I've had 3 years of making terrible things bearable. Kieran reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch lingered. You're extraordinary. You know that. My breath caught. There was something in his eyes that looked dangerously like adoration. I'm really not. I'm just extraordinary, he repeated firmly. Anyone else would have run. Would have demanded we find a way to break this bond immediately regardless of consequences. But you stayed. You helped me heal. You do your own therapy. You smile at me even on days when I know your pain is bad. That's extraordinary, River. I didn't know what to say, so I just squeezed his hand and stayed until he fell back asleep. But I noticed that Kieran touched me more now. Small things, brushing my arm when we passed in hallways, pulling me closer when we sat together, finding excuses to be in physical contact. The bond, probably. But it felt like more. And Cassian noticed too. My brother is falling in love with you, Cassian said bluntly one evening. We were in the library, both reading, comfortable silence between us that had developed over months of proximity. That's the bond. It's not just the bond. Cassian set down his book. I know my brother. I've watched him fall in and out of love half a dozen times. This is different. Deeper. The bond might have started it, but what he feels now is real. It can't be. We barely know each other. You've lived in the same house for 8 months. You know his worst nightmares and his favorite books and exactly how he takes his coffee. You know when he's pretending to be okay and when he's actually healing. That's not barely knowing someone. That's intimacy. I closed my book, unable to focus anymore. What do you want me to do about it? I can't. Cassian, I can't love him back just because a bond made him feel this way. That's not fair to either of us. I'm not asking you to love him. I'm warning you that when the bond fades, when you're ready to leave, it's going to destroy him. And I need to know if you're prepared for that. Are you asking me to stay permanently? I'm asking you to be honest with yourself about what you feel for him. Because I've watched you too, River. I've seen how you look at him. How you light up when he walks into a room. How you stay with him through nightmares even when your own body is screaming in pain. That's not obligation. That's care. Care isn't love. It's the beginning of it. I left the library before he could say anything else that might be true. But that night, lying in my beautiful suite, I forced myself to examine my feelings. Did I care about Kieran? Yes. Did I enjoy his company? Absolutely. Did I look forward to seeing him? More than I wanted to admit. But love? Love required trust one didn't have anymore. Love required believing someone wouldn't leave when things got hard. And everyone in my life had proved that love was conditional on me being easy, perfect, unbroken. I was still broken. The physical therapy helped, but I'd never be the Omega society wanted me to be. I'd always need mobility aids sometimes. Always have pain. Always be someone who required accommodation and patience. Kieran might think he loved me now, while the bond made him need my presence. But what happened when it faded? When he realized he'd tangled his life with someone who'd never be easy. He'd leave. They all did eventually. So I couldn't let myself love him back. Couldn't risk that kind of pain again. But the universe, as always, had other plans. The attack came on a Tuesday. I was alone in the library. Kieran was in a meeting with Cassian, some packed business I wasn't privy to, when I heard glass shatter downstairs. Then shouting. Then gunfire. My heart stopped. I grabbed my phone. But before I could call for help, the library door burst open. 3 armed men in tactical gear. Professional. Calm. One of them smiled when he saw me. There you are, he said. The crippled Omega. Our leverage. I tried to run. Made it maybe 3 steps before my legs gave out, and I went down hard. Pain exploded up my spine. One of them grabbed me, hauled me up. I screamed. Shut up, he snarled. And then there was a cloth over my face and a chemical smell, and everything went dark. I woke up in pain. Serious pain, the kind that meant I'd been moved roughly without regard for my condition. My spine felt like it was on fire, my legs completely numb. I was in a basement somewhere. Concrete floors, bare walls, one flickering bulb overhead. My hands were zip-tied in front of me. My crutches were gone. My phone was gone. I was completely helpless. The man from the library walked in, and this time he wasn't smiling. Here's how this works, he said. You're going to call Cassian Frost and tell him that if he wants you back, he'll withdraw his claim on the Northern Territory. He'll dismantle his security network, and he'll transfer control of 3 shipping routes to us. He won't do that for me. I'm no one. You're his brother's bondmate. Even if it's not official. Even if it's just some weird blood thing. Kieran Frost will burn the world down to get you back. And Cassian won't let his brother suffer. He crouched in front of me. So make the call. Convince them. Or we start sending pieces of you back until they agree. He held a phone to my ear. I heard it ring. Heard Cassian's voice, tight, with controlled fury. River, I'm okay. I said immediately, even though it was a lie. They want. I know what they want. Put Marcus on. The man, Marcus apparently, took the phone. Their conversation was brief and vicious. When Marcus hung up, he looked pleased. Your alpha agreed to talk. We'll see if he's smart enough to actually deal. He stood. In the meantime, you sit tight. Try to escape, and I'll break your legs. Oh wait, they're already broken, aren't they? He laughed and left me in the dark. I don't know how long I was there. Hours, maybe. Long enough for the pain to become unbearable, for my legs to go completely numb, for panic to claw at my throat. This was how I died. Helpless in a basement, used as leverage in a war I didn't understand. Then I heard it. Gunfire. Shouting. Something that sounded like explosions. The door burst open. But it wasn't my captors. It was Kieran and Cassian, covered in blood that I prayed wasn't theirs, moving with lethal precision. Kieran saw me, and something in his expression broke. River, he breathed. And then he was there, kneeling beside me, cutting the zip ties with a knife that was still bloody. I've got you. You're safe. I promise you're safe now. My legs, I managed. I can't feel them. They moved me wrong and I can't. We'll fix it. We'll fix everything. Kieran scooped me up so carefully, like I was made of glass. Cassian, clear? Clear. Cassian confirmed, appearing in the doorway. His face was splattered with blood, his eyes cold and lethal. They're all dead. Every single one who touched him. They carried me out through carnage I couldn't look at. Bodies. Blood. Evidence of extreme violence. The Frost twins had come for me, and they'd left nothing alive in their wake. In the car, Kieran held me while Cassian drove with controlled fury. How did you find me? We tracked your phone before they ditched it, Cassian said. Then I called in every favor, used every contact, and threatened every person who might have information. It took 4 hours. For hours you were gone, and his voice cracked. I thought we'd lost you. We'd never lose you, Kieran said fiercely, his arms tightening. Never. Do you understand? You're ours, River. Ours to protect. Ours to keep. And anyone who tries to take you from us learns exactly why people fear the Frost twins. I should have been terrified by the possessiveness in his voice. Instead, I felt safe for the first time since I'd woken up in that basement. At the hospital, doctors rushed me into surgery. The rough handling had damaged something in my spine, compressed nerves that were barely functional to begin with. They spent 6 hours operating while Kieran and Cassian waited, refusing to leave. When I woke up, they were both there. Kieran holding my hand. Cassian standing guard at the door like he could physically fight off anything that might hurt me. Your legs, the doctor said gently. The damage is severe. We did what we could, but you'll be using a wheelchair for the foreseeable future. Maybe permanently. I'm sorry. I'd known it was coming. But hearing it still felt like losing something vital. Okay, I whispered. It's not okay, Kieran said, his voice rough. This is my fault. They took you because of me. Because of this fucking bond that I should have. Stop, I cut him off. This isn't your fault. It's the fault of the people who attacked. That's it. River's right, Cassian said quietly. The blame lies with those who chose violence. And they've paid for it. All of them, I asked. Every single one. I made sure of it. There was a darkness in Cassian's voice that should have scared me. Instead, it made me feel protected. Safe. Thank you, I said. For coming for me. For caring enough to come. Caring enough? Kieran's voice broke. River, I would have burned the entire city down to find you. I would have done anything, sacrificed anything, destroyed anything. You're not just. He stopped, swallowed hard. I love you. I know that's complicated and probably unwelcome, but it's true. I love you, and I will never let anyone hurt you again. My breath caught. Kieran, you don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. But you need to know that's what this is for me. Not just a bond. Not just gratitude. Love. Real, consuming, probably unhealthy love. I looked at Cassian, expecting him to intervene. Instead, he met my gaze with something intense in his eyes. He's not the only one, Cassian said quietly. The world tilted. What? I've been fighting it for months, Cassian continued, his voice perfectly controlled despite the confession. Telling myself it was just concern for my brother. Just gratitude for helping Kieran heal. But watching you in pain, watching you be brave despite everything, watching you navigate our world with grace when you had every right to be bitter, I fell for you, River. Completely. And when you were taken, when I thought I might not get you back, I realized I'd been lying to myself about what you mean to me. This is the bond, I said desperately. It's making you both feel things that aren't real. No, Kieran said. The bond might have brought us together, but what I feel now is choice. I choose you, River. Every day, bond or no bond. I second that, Cassian agreed. And I don't have a bond excuse. I just have you, being extraordinary, and me being unable to look away. I didn't know what to say. Two alphas, powerful, dangerous, beautiful alphas, were confessing they loved me. Broken, wheelchair-bound me, who couldn't offer them any of the things alphas usually wanted from omegas. I need time, I whispered. To think. To process. This is too much too fast, and I can't. Take all the time you need, Cassian said immediately. There's no pressure. No expectations. We just needed you to know. We're not letting you go, though, Kieran added. Even if you don't love us back, you're staying with us. Where we can protect you. Where you're safe. I don't get a choice in that. You do, Cassian corrected gently. But we're asking you to choose to stay. Because the alternative, you being out there, vulnerable, where people can target you to get to us, that's not acceptable anymore. They were right. The attack had proved that being associated with the Frost twins put me in danger. Leaving wouldn't make me safer. It would just mean I'd face that danger alone. Okay, I agreed. I'll stay, but I need boundaries. Clear ones. Because this, I gestured between the three of us. This is complicated, and I don't know how to navigate it. We'll figure it out together, Kieran promised. And somehow, I believed him. Recovery was long and painful. The wheelchair became permanent, at least for now. My legs worked sometimes, enough to stand with support, enough to transfer to chairs or beds. But walking was done. My independence had a new shape. Kieran and Cassian adapted the entire estate for me. Ramps everywhere. Widened doorways. Accessible bathrooms. They hired a full-time aide, a kind woman named Sarah who understood chronic pain and disability. And they were there. Always. Kieran, openly devoted, telling me he loved me regularly without demanding I say it back. Cassian, more reserved, but no less present, showing his care through actions rather than words. I found myself falling. Slowly, carefully, terrified every step of the way. But falling nonetheless. Because they didn't treat me like I was broken. They treated me like I was precious. Valuable. Worth protecting not despite my disability, but including it. It was Cassian who finally pushed me to confront my feelings. You're afraid, he said one evening. We were alone in the library, our usual spot. Of letting yourself love us back. Loving people who could leave seems stupid. We're not leaving. Everyone says that. Then my body proves too difficult, too complicated, too much work, and suddenly they're gone. We're not everyone. Cassian moved closer, careful not to crowd me. River, look at me. I did. His Arctic blue eyes were intense, but warm. I've rebuilt an empire from ashes, he said quietly. I've survived attempts on my life, betrayals from people I trusted, and losing my parents in one night. I've seen the worst of what this world can do. And I'm telling you, with absolute certainty, that nothing about you is too difficult. Nothing about you is too much. You're exactly what I want. Exactly what Kieran wants. How can you be sure? Because we've already seen you at your worst. We've seen you in pain, seen you struggle, seen you need help. And it didn't make us want you less. It made us want to protect you more. He touched my face gently. You're not a burden, River. You're a privilege. My eyes burned. I don't know how to believe that. Then let us prove it. Every day? For as long as it takes. That night, I wheeled myself to Kieran's room and knocked. When he opened the door, surprised to see me, I said the words I'd been holding back. I love you too. Both of you. I don't know how this works or what it means, but I love you, and I'm choosing to stay. Not because of the bond. Because I want to. Kieran's face did something complicated. Joy and relief and wonder. He dropped to his knees in front of my wheelchair, so we were eye level. Say it again, he whispered. I love you. He kissed me. Soft and gentle and full of promise. And for the first time in 3 years, I let myself hope that maybe, just maybe, I'd found somewhere I belonged. Cassian appeared in the doorway, clearly having heard. He didn't look jealous. He looked pleased. Both of us? He asked, seeking confirmation. Both of you, I confirmed. I don't know how that works practically. We'll figure it out, Kieran interrupted. Together, the three of us. And we did. It was complicated and unconventional, and sometimes messy. But it worked. Because they loved me enough to make it work. A year and a half after that desperate night when I donated blood to save a dying alpha, I sat in a garden I'd helped design, surrounded by accessibility features and beauty in equal measure, with two alphas who decided I was worth keeping. The bond had faded to something manageable. The doctor said I could leave now without damage to any of us. I chose to stay anyway, because love, real, complicated, messy love, was worth more than freedom from a bond. It was worth everything. The end. Sometimes the things that break us are the very things that bring us home. Sometimes the people who refuse to let us go are the ones we were meant to find all along. Thank you for staying with River, Kieran, and Cassian until the very end.